this is here saying it totally cuts off Gino's story to prove Kayla was attracted to defend his life choices. And as Aaron's life choices include cuckoldry, which, to be fair, the whole cover was like an entire like circular firing straw of cuckoldry. Really, when you think about it, they were all cucking each other. It was kind of weird. And then drug use and child neglect, which, yes, Aaron is involved in all those. Just Aaron happens to be the cleanest turd in the toilet, as I've said before. Police started investigating. Once Kayla and Nick and April went to the police and sought to report it, they contacted Gino. And Gino said, yeah, Aaron sent me a pic of Kayla, Nick Ricada's wife, also Aaron M. Holt's former girlfriend. And she was, at least her breasts were exposed, and you could see tattoos and everything on it. Okay, and Gino said that. And then Keanu said, yeah, Gino showed me that too. I saw the same picture. Now, are Keanu and Gino in trouble? No, they don't live in Minnesota. They live in New York City, I think, or New Jersey. They don't live in Minnesota, so it's not an issue for them. They're not in trouble. That's not a problem for it. So I know people were saying, well, what about Gino showing it to Keanu? Nope, doesn't matter. What about Gino receiving it? Receiving it's not the issue. It's transmitting it or publishing it or doing something with it. That's the problem. So Aaron was charged, and Aaron's got a couple of charges he's got to deal with here. And the non-consensual dissemination of private sexual images. So it's intentionally disseminating images without consent. And in this situation, under one of these readings of the statute, it's a felony. And why? Because it's done so without the person's consent and with the intent to harass the person depicted in the image. So therefore, it's a felony because it's got a harassment. Count 2 is the same thing, intentionally disseminating images without consent. But as you notice, it's without the person's consent, but there is no issue of harassment here. But they point out that you wrongfully, unlawfully, feloniously, and intentionally disseminate an image of another person who's depicted in a sexual act, where his intimate parts are exposed when the person's identifiable and without the person's consent. So that's why for Aaron, the second time around on here, it's a gross misdemeanor, and he faces up to 364 days in jail and or a $3,000 fine. So obviously, both of these aren't good because 364 days in jail would suck. Really, any days in jail would suck. But also, it sucks a lot less than a possible 3 years of imprisonment.
I have Judge we waive reading.
Thank you.
So, right off the bat, Aaron's there. He's with his attorney. His attorney's speaking in the background. They're waiving a reading of his rights, and they're going to get right to it from here. So, this is...
specifically.
Now, here's the thing. Aaron's history is that prior harassment order he got in trouble for violating. And we saw that a little while ago, like what, about a month and a half ago. He had to go into court, and he had to enter a plea to misdemeanor violating a harassment order, restraining order, whatever you want to call it. So, yes, he has a history of it. Now, the history is brand new, but you know what? That's a great way to show the court you're not going to follow the rules, is you literally just violated the rules. That doesn't instill confidence in the court. You're all of a sudden going to start following the rules. So Aaron's got that issue now. And the bond being $100,000, yeah, you know what? That's twice what Nick's was. Do I think that it should have been that high? No. But do I see that it would be more than Nick's in most other situations? Yes. Because Nick had a drug offense. But Aaron's got an allegation of harassment of people, and he's got a prior brand new conviction of harassing and violating a harassing order. So those are red flags for courts. Now, does it make sense as $100,000? No, I think that's a bit fucking ridiculous. But also, hey, $50,000 is ridiculous too, but that's Minnesota for you. But anywhere, if you came to Ohio when you had this issue and you got charged with violating a protection order and you pled out to it, and then weeks later you got charged with something like this, yeah, it's going to look bad. It doesn't look good. It never looks good, chat. So having a bond with restrictive conditions attached to it, that's also not uncommon either. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody.
The request for $100,000 on conditional bail is excessive.
Now, Josh Moise is reading his resume. Well, this is how it works. When you're trying to explain to a judge, hey, don't set my bond high. Why? Well, why should I give you a lower bond? I have a home. I live in the community. I have children, my job, all these things that tie me to the community. If you're, like the president of this, that, and the other, you have very strong ties to the community. All the reasons why they're concerned about you not showing up to court, you alleviate them of those reasons. That's why, for example, when Nick had his bond argument, he just said, oh, I challenge it on the 8th Amendment because it's just really high and violates the 8th Amendment. Well, he didn't say, like, Your Honor, look, I live here in the county. I've lived here for 15 years or however long it is. I own a home. I have a rental property here. My family lives here. I have 5 kids. They go to church here. They go to school here. I've had no other interactions with the criminal justice system. I have, other than traffic tickets. Like, that's the stuff you point out. You're giving the court a reason to lower your bond. So, yes, it is. It is how you do this. You basically are giving a resume. You're trying to convince the judge, hey, judge, give this guy a break. So, yeah, it is a resume. But, yes, you have to. Otherwise, you just go, please, judge, it's really high. You can post houses and other collateral types of property for bond. The thing is, you have to own them. And I bet Aaron's probably got a mortgage on his house, so he doesn't own it. And it wouldn't be, so that'd be a problem.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson, anything additional?
All right. So he does have bond conditions. One of them is he can't talk about Kayla. Can't mention her name, can't talk about her. He can't go, he can't say, he can't go on Steel Toe tomorrow and be like, well, I can't, that Schmela lady or that, insert whatever. You can't do that. You can't say that woman in Spicer or that chick I used to bang, or you can't refer to her as, anything you want to think about. You can't do if it's clearly referring to her. He can't talk about her. I've had these types of things before. People, it's not that they have internet shows or radio shows or anything like that, but they'll go on Facebook and talk about a party. And you have to explain to them, you need to pretend like they're dead. They're gone. They don't exist anymore. You don't talk about them. Now, that's going to be tough. I think this is going to be tough for Aaron, because if he wants to go talk shit about Nick or April, it's going to be really fucking easy for him to step over that line and talk about Kayla. I guarantee you. I guarantee you it's going to happen. That's going to be tough for Aaron. So, Aaron's going to have to shut the fuck up about the whole thing. Maybe. He's going to have to talk about other stuff, which I'm not sure, I think even Aaron recognizes, well, that's a big draw for me. So he's really going to have to be mindful of what he says, or he's going to fucking rake himself, which I'm willing to bet he's going to do. And that is a narrowly tailored restriction. They're not saying can't talk about Nick, can't talk about April. Nope. Just saying can't talk about the one person who filed the complaint or came to the police with the complaint.
The state speedy request, and then the next hearing date will be set in coordination with counsel.
Now, that's interesting, because the state's saying, his attorney's like, no, we'll take our time. And prosecutor goes, well, actually, we can go right away. Now, are they doing that because they think this is they're truly scared of, oh my God, we really believe Kayla's scared of Aaron here? I don't know. Who knows whether they're doing that? We're going to have to see. Can force a speedy trial to happen, and that causes a lot of problems for the state, and they might scramble to get things together. They might cut you a deal. Sometimes they'll dismiss because you're running them out of time. This is all, it's all tactics. And there's sales, and there's also tactical considerations. In this situation, I don't think there is a benefit to forcing a speedy trial right now, because they've already got what they need. They're not waiting on reports or testing. Not only is Kayla punishing and going after Aaron for allegedly sending nudes, but she can also get him to shut the fuck up. Now, granted, that might be Nick trying to tactically do something there. Sure, it could be. But you know what? That's a tertiary benefit. That's not the primary benefit. All right, so you have the consent issues. Without the person's consent, and without the person's consent down here. You're trying to say, and I get what the argument is here, oh, well, hey, there's a picture of Kayla showing her ass. All right. Then there's the bottle pictures. And then the other pictures that are up on locals. Yeah, that's an argument to make. You have a bit of an issue. It's like 2 years ago. Because Hito was how far back? It was a while ago. And then Bottlegate. And not the one that started the war in the Balkans, but the Bottlegate pictures. How long were those from? It's not like she just took those last month or in the past 6 months. They're old. A person might change how they feel about things since then. I know there are people who are trying to show, oh, look, there was a comment on locals. Yeah, that was back then too. So it's like 2 years old. It's not really fresh anymore. It's not relevant. I mean, it's got some level of relevancy, but it's not good. It's not valid. It's not a certified freshhood single. So what have you done recently? What do you have right now that's showing that there might be lack of consent? That's the big thing. That's where you're going to have the issues, I think, trying to bring that up. If I was a prosecutor, I'd object on relevancy issues. This is from 2 years ago. So even if he had it, I don't know what it does. Now, I don't know how this will... And something I thought about, because technically these are sexual images. Does this count as sexual sexual conduct? Because if it does, we might have like a rape shield issue. Because bringing up her prior acts, you did all this stuff before. You're an exhibitionist before, but now you're not. That could possibly get triggered here. Although issues of consent are one of the 3 ways you can generally circumvent rape shield laws. I don't know if that would apply here. I don't know Minnesota's laws well enough to know would this consider it or fall into it. I think that's a bit of a stretch. But someone asked me about that, and I think it's something to think about. But ultimately, Erin's got a big problem trying to drag those in because they're old. Berta says, but her prior acts of being in a 4-way relationship. They were in a 4-way picture sharing group. They can make an argument. We wanted to limit it to that group. And as she said in the complaint here, I even think she says that. Yeah, okay. The purpose of the app was to keep things private amongst each other and all agree nothing would be shared to others. Now, remember, that's Kayla just saying it. And, depending on who you want to believe as far as legal things are concerned, either these are all lies, this whole thing is a lie, or a more rational and nuanced and reasonable person would say, there might be something to talk about in here. The purpose is to keep things private, and they all agreed. Okay. Were there any other leaks? Did it ever happen before? That might be something that's relevant. How did that happen? What was the reaction to it? Who did it? That would be important because this whole thing here, the whole cover thing, that all started since the comedy show. So that would be relevant. That would work here.